Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing today? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is $3 Theater, and I'm back with another review of Unsolved Mysteries' new season, the volume 1 of 6 episodes that dropped just yesterday. And this one is all about 13 Minutes, which is the story of the disappearance and ultimate death of a 38-year-old mother in Cumming, Georgia, named Patrice Enders, or Andres, sorry, who went missing back in April 2004 from her hair salon in Cummings, Georgia, and she was found 22 months later. Well, skeletal remains were found. Sorry, 20 months later, her skeletal remains were found. And that is just the beginning of this very weird piece. So this whole story centers really around two people giving their opinions on it. And that would be Pistol Black, which is Patrice's son. And by the way, that's a really cool name. I think that's a really good name. Pistol, at this point now, is in his 30s. He has a lot of trauma over his mom leaving because he was a mama's boy. I mean, he even doesn't even try to argue against that. He was absolutely positively a mama's boy. And she thought the world of him. She went to every one of his events. She was a very attentive mother. She loved him immensely, made sure he got whatever he wanted for Christmas, was there to be his friend. But, her husband, Rob Anders, he didn't like him. He didn't like him. They have two conflicting views of basically what happened, which is very interesting considering the fact of what ultimately Patrice succumbed to. And well, we don't fully know everything, but this is what happened. So after dropping Pistol off at school, she went to her hair salon. She did a couple of appointments. And then during 13 minutes in between someone calling and everything else, she vanished. I think at her next appointment, she vanished. Within 13 minutes, she was gone. And Georgia police have been desperately trying to locate any information as to what happened. So they don't know because there was nothing that seemed out of the ordinary outside of the cash register being open and the her purse being left behind. Other than that, nothing was astray. Nothing was knocked over. No sign of a struggle. What was interesting was her vehicle, which was normally parked on the side of the hair salon, was parked more kind of catty corner to the front of it, as if it looked like it was possibly giving somebody a jump start. And that could be what lured her outside and then ultimately what got her captured. And two different witnesses have both seen relatively the same incident, but they have different recollections of it. So one woman driving by thought that she saw a Chevy Luminera, a blue Chevy Luminera, with a woman next to Patrice, and they were talking like one of them had fallen over, one of them was trying to get up, and the other gentleman had seen what appeared to be like a blue Taurus and a man with shoulder-length hair with Patrice. And that is, again, two very different takes on what happened, but very similar in regards to what they saw. So that's why the police think both are very credible, because they describe essentially the same incident, just the details are a bit wonky. And that, unfortunately, is why eyewitnesses are terrible when it comes to actually remembering what's happening. That they'll remember certain key details, but it's never a one-to-one recollection. It's always never going to work out the way that they want to. And this is true about homicide and about police investigations and things like that. Eyewitnesses can only take you so far, which is true. In movies, we tend to look at eyewitnesses as being this like be all end all, but in reality, it's really not. Our memories, how we interpret them, how things influence us, will alter how we move forward on these topics when we think back. Never mind the fact that the older you get, the more you tend to remember something. It's more often you are creating a new memory versus like you're carving out new neural patterns in your brain. Like you create a new memory when you try to remember it. So it's not the best thing. I'm not very well versed in it, but this is based on what I know. So police, again, were like looking into her husband. Now, this is where things get really freaking creepy because, and again, this is what I think the filmmaker, I think the guy behind it, I think the editors, they were very much trying to set up Rob as having more to do with it than he lets on. And there's a couple choice things that they leave in his interview that are either meant to mislead the audience, which is entirely possible. It's meant to kind of establish a bad guy narrative, even though he hasn't been cleared by the cops. They said he hasn't been cleared, but his timeline puts him about 45 minutes away. And it would be very difficult for him to make the journey from his work over to her hair salon, kidnap her, put her somewhere, and then drive back towards where his work is, get gas, and then be back at work by the time he clocked back in. It's doable, but it's very, 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 very difficult according to the authorities. So he hasn't been ruled out, but for the most part, he's been basically ruled out. So they have that. But Rob, according to Pistol, was exceptionally possessive. And not only Pistol, but other ones of Patrice's friends had said he was very possessive. When he met her, he was 50 and she was 30. And he married her and he moved her in and he moved in Pistol. And the thing is, he hates Pistol. And he's open about that. He's open about how much he hated that kid. And I mean, we're talking about like the day after Patrice went missing, Rob changed the locks on the doors to the house and wouldn't let Pistol into his room to get his own clothing. And Rob's definition, like his explanation for that was, well, it wasn't safe here. It'd be safer with him to go elsewhere. Didn't say to go to his father's house, right? Which is where he ultimately went, but just said just to get him out of here. He says, plus I didn't like him. So, I mean, right then and there is just like, holy crap, and everyone was saying that Rob is super possessive, and Rob, even by his own admission, was possessive over Patrice. And when you find out how far that goes, that's like where, I mean, again, it's like he admits this kind of thing. So I'll get to that here in a second, because, oh my God, that kind of blew my mind. So they said 20 months after she went missing, they found her body, remains of her body, the skeletal remains, roughly about 6 miles away behind a church. And they went in, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation went in and they scoured the whole area for whatever they could find. And they just found most of her body. But they were able to determine that it was her because, there was that. And then, when they called Rob and had Rob come in to view, like to get the remains, he went to the mortuary and he had the mortician reassemble her body to the best of his ability. Yeah, he admits this. To reassemble her body by the best that they could. And then they left him in there for a while, and he picked up Patrice's skull, and he admitted this. He picked up Patrice's skull and he walked around the room with it in order to say goodbye. And he even said that when he was done, he kissed it. I was like, what the, oh my God, man, what are you doing? But then from there, it even gets creepier. So he, in my opinion, to hurt Pistol, never gave Pistol the remains. He had him cremated and then he had it in a box and he never opened the box, but he put the box in his bed and he slept with it like a teddy bear for about a year after they had found the remains. And then in the show, he had it in his closet and he opens it up he cuts the tape and everything in front of cameras in order for people to be able to see, like, he's never opened the box. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of weird, but he was possessive. And he admits it. He is her caretaker now. She's his. It's a possession at this point. It's an absolute possession. They were together for 8 years. He loved her, but her son is who should have the remains. I don't think I'm alone in thinking that. I don't know if Pistol is a good guy or a bad guy. They portrayed him as being, a relatively good guy in the episode, but it was still crazy. It was still crazy that this is what was, that he had the skull, he kissed it, he had her cremated, he slept with the ashes. But the crazier thing too is earlier on in the episode when they had talked about the investigation into him, he admitted he has a degree in criminology. It's one line. That's it. It's one line. He says it. And then they kind of like let it linger for a second and then they move on. I mean, and I'm like, what the hell? For one, hold on, take a step, back the hell up. What do you mean he's got a degree in criminology? Like, why isn't this a big factor? Now, granted, to be fair, we don't know what that means. We don't know what he's capable of doing. Did he have a hand in her disappearance? Was it a murder for hire? And the reason why that's come up in conversation is because according to Patrice's friends and even her son, she wasn't happy because they fought all the time and she wanted a divorce. Now, is it possible that Rob found out about the divorce and then ended up taking her? Is it possible that was what happened? Maybe. I have no idea. I mean, like, I have no idea if that could have been the case or not. But what we know from watching this episode is that he really, really is possessive over her. Now, when Pistol had talked about them fighting, Rob was like, we never fought. And we had disagreements. Every married couple does, but we never fought. And I'm like, dude, that's a load of crap right there, man. Like, he's like, no, she loved me, I loved her. She adored me, I adored her. We never fought. And I'm like, I'm going to believe the kid on this one, because like I've been in a 12-year relationship. We fight all the damn time. Fighting in relationships is part of being in a relationship. But I think what it was is she was with Rob because he provided. She was able to get her salon, which is her dream. She was able to provide for her son, which was something she really wanted to do, to have a comfortable life. And so she took that, even though she was unhappy, she took that in order to be able to provide for herself and to provide for her son, thinking, hey, look, he's got 20 years on me. I'm going to outlast him by a long time. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen. And it's been 16 years since she died. So with any luck, this situation will get a little bit of light on it, and that might open up more witnesses to whoever was driving that blue Chevy Luminera or that blue Ford Taurus. Whichever one it is, again, we have no idea because the two witnesses kind of, they don't see eye to eye on that specifically. But we're going to have to wait and see what goes on with that. And I think this one is going to be one of the ones I've seen so far that I think is a lot of people are going to be talking about it. In fact, I've seen the Daily Mail run an article about Rob and the whole skull thing, which means it's now getting worldwide press and people are going to be discussing it. But what I personally think that we're going to find out more probably once Rob is no longer around. I think we might find something then, given how possessive and private he is on this front. If he did have anything to do with it, he probably thought to himself, it's been so long, I can go and do this Unsolved Mysteries documentary, and people might suspect that I did it, but they have nothing to get me on. The cops have almost basically ruled me out, and I can sit there and I can flaunt her ashes, that I own her, that I protect her. And it's a possession thing. It's like he owns her. He can flaunt that to the world. And more importantly, he can flaunt it to Pistol, because he knows that they're going to talk to Pistol, and he knows that it's going to get Pistol angry. That's what's going to happen. So him doing all of that, in my opinion, was to get at her kid, who he admitted he didn't like. That is a huge FU from a step parent who tried to be the step parent for a year, according to Pistol, and then became a grade A jerk. And when you listen to this guy talk, he's a grade A jerk. But at the end of the day, this is just another good episode in the Unsolved Mysteries lineup. I want to know what you guys have to say about this. Let me know down in the comments below. If you like true crime, head on over to the video description section. I'll have a link over to my podcast, my true crime podcast called Carton Mysteries, where I do 3 stories and I cover current events, what's happening. That's on YouTube as well as podcasts. And then we'll be doing some more deep dives into unsolved cases as time goes on. I'm a big true crime aficionado, trying to make a pivot into that. Unsolved Mysteries is like one of my all-time favorite shows. And while the show does not have Robert Stack, unfortunately, it still has the iconic music and very good production values, and it tells some insanely good stories. So tonight I'm going to drop 2 more episodes and watch those. Tomorrow I'll review them. We can talk about it again. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a great day. Thank you again for watching, and peace out.